Today on Sports Central, we'll be going over a coachable game preview and prediction on one of the big matchups coming up in week number 8 of this 2020 season, and that's going to be between Iowa State and Oklahoma State. And this is going to be a big matchup, especially in the Big 12, and determining who's really going to be a real contender in the Big 12 this season. Of course, both teams are ranked right now. In Oklahoma State, the pressure is on for them as they are ranked in the top 6 right now. So all around, it's going to be an interesting matchup between both of these teams, and a very important one for that matter. And we're going to get this one started, starting out with your team trends. And of course, last game, Iowa State beat Texas Tech 31-15. And then we also saw Oklahoma State beat Kansas a couple of weeks back, 47-7. So all around, both teams right now are looking pretty good, especially in the Big 12. Iowa State has won 3 in a row, and they're sitting at 3-1, also being ranked the 17th team in the nation. Meanwhile, Oklahoma State is actually ranked 6th right now. That's the highest they've been ranked in quite a long time, and they're 3-0 as well, undefeated with a 3-game winning streak as well. The game's going to be on Saturday, October 24th, 3:30 p.m. Eastern in Stillwater, so Oklahoma State will be the home team for this matchup. Spread currently says Oklahoma State by 3.5. ESPN FPI also has Oklahoma State 73%. Then the Vegas prediction has Oklahoma State by 9, 34-25 being the final score there. So all three of our sources here have Oklahoma State winning it pretty marginally, so it's not going to be much of a blowout, but in a somewhat close matchup, which I do kind of agree with. I think it's going to be a close matchup between both of these teams, depending on who does get the win in the end. But the pressure is certainly on for Oklahoma State right now. They actually have not played a game since October 3rd. So by the time we play this game, it's going to be 3 weeks since their last game. Of course, with COVID-related concerns, they've had to postpone a couple of matchups over the past couple of weeks, and that's the reason why Oklahoma State has not played in a long time. And that's the main reason why they jumped up so high in the rankings in the first place, is because of that very reason. So it's going to be interesting to see whether or not they will play like the 6th team in the country, or whether or not they're going to drop just like North Carolina did. But once again, I mean, it's kind of the same pattern that North Carolina did. I mean, if you look at them, they really rose to the rankings because of a couple of good wins, and then they just fell big time to Florida State. So who knows what can happen here. This college football season is just so unpredictable in many ways. But as far as it goes for your stat comparison, Oklahoma State definitely is the better team in this aspect. We got Iowa State, of course, with 30 points per game, 28 points allowed, 235 pass yards, 179 rush yards a game. And as far as yards allowed, they got 266 pass yards and 97 rush yards per game. As for the Cowboys, you got 30 points per game, 9 points allowed per game. So all around, Oklahoma State has got a great defense going right now, only allowing 9 points per game through their last 3 games. And they also have 193 pass yards a game, 213 rush yards, and then 180 pass yards allowed per game, along with 93 rush yards. So all around, this defense is great. I mean, they've only hardly allowed like 270 yards per game, so that's really good. I'm sure that's one of the best rates in the nation right now. But all around, yeah, I'd say Iowa State probably. I mean, they've allowed 28 points per game, and that is a big difference in comparison to Oklahoma State's 9. So that is something that Iowa State should be concerned about there, is making sure that their defense plays well, because if Iowa State's defense does not play well in this situation, it is not going to be a very fun game for the Cyclones. Here's your previous games for both these teams as well. Iowa State beat Texas Tech once again 31-15 on October 10th. They also beat Oklahoma. That was a huge upset for them at the time, 37-30, and Oklahoma, of course, is not looking like a very good team right now. But still, a win like that is definitely monumental for a team like Iowa State. And they also beat TCU 37-34, and that was after losing to, or that was before losing to Louisiana. Of course, they lost that game 14-31, and that was a terrible loss at that time. I mean, Louisiana definitely is not all that good of a team, but all around, Iowa State definitely looks like a different team than they did on September 12th. So I think Iowa State has changed a lot since then. It was just the first game that really was not very good for Iowa State. So I think Iowa State's going to put up a pretty good fight in this matchup. Oklahoma State, on the other hand, they've beaten Kansas 47-7, also beat West Virginia 27-13, and they also beat Tulsa in their first game of the season 16-7. So they've got 3 wins under their belt, which really, I mean, beating West Virginia by only a couple of touchdowns is a little bit concerning to me, because, I mean, you should probably beat West Virginia by more than a couple of touchdowns if you're a top 6 team in the nation. Same thing with Tulsa. I mean, only beating Tulsa by 9 does concern me a little bit if you're talking about a top team in the country. So, I mean, I do think Oklahoma State is a little bit overrated as far as the rankings go, mainly because, I mean, they only beat Tulsa by 9 a couple of weeks ago, and they also only beat West Virginia by a couple of touchdowns. I mean, I understand they beat Kansas by a good 40 points, but then again, Kansas is Kansas. They're not hardly even a mediocre team, so it is a little bit concerning to me to see Oklahoma State with a pretty poor strength of schedule so far, and this is their first main test against Iowa State coming up this weekend, so yeah, it should be an interesting game for sure. As far as our key points go, Iowa State has got some great momentum going right now. Obviously, they did not play last week, so that's something you got to note. But still, I think Iowa State's looking really good heading into this matchup against the Cowboys. Meanwhile, for Oklahoma State, they're off to a great start, obviously, 3-0, and also a top 6 team in the nation, but they haven't played a game since October 3rd, and that's something I mentioned earlier. I mean, that's like 3 weeks. They've had 3 straight bye weeks, and who knows if Oklahoma State's going to be rusty or not coming into a big matchup like this. Like, that is something that's a little bit concerning for me heading into this matchup, especially for Oklahoma State, is whether or not they're going to be rusty or not, because once again, when you have 3 straight weeks off in the middle of a season, yeah, that is a little bit concerning, especially for the Cowboys in this situation. So I think Iowa State, being a team that's got a lot more momentum right now, I'd be a little bit worried if I were Oklahoma State, but do expect a higher scoring game. I think this is going to be a classic Big 12 matchup, very high scoring, and a lot of points will be scored here between both. Here's what I'm expecting for this one. I've got Iowa State actually bowling a huge upset in this matchup. I think Iowa State in general has really changed a lot since September 12th and that day that they lost to Louisiana. I think Iowa State's going to win this matchup. Big upset here. I think your halftime score will be leaning towards Oklahoma State. They will lead at 21-17, but once again, in the final, I've got the Cyclones, and I'm sure that was quite evident by the way I was speaking in this video. I mean, I think Iowa State's got a lot more momentum right now. They're all around just looking like the better team right now, and I think Iowa State is going to win this one 38-35, and they're going to take advantage of Oklahoma State being off for 3 weeks. I think Oklahoma State being off for a full 3 weeks and already jumping right into the pressure of being a top 6 team is going to really, it's not going to be good for them, and I think Iowa State's going to really capitalize on that, and I think it's going to be kind of similar to what we saw back last week when North Carolina, 5th-ranked team in the nation, lost to Florida State. And obviously Florida State is not nearly as good of a team as Iowa State is, but Florida State knocked off North Carolina pretty convincingly. They led that game for pretty much the entire time, if not the entire time. So I think that's going to be kind of similar to what's going to happen to Oklahoma State here, but I mean, it's just the 3 weeks off for Oklahoma State is really going to come back to bite them, I think, in this one, and I've got Iowa State getting the win in the end. But do let me know your thoughts and comments below on this one. If you enjoyed this preview, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Once again, your score predictions, etc., all of that. But then again, thanks again for watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central, and I will see you all later.